Okay, hello again. Very good afternoon from rainy Wendlingen today. Phil is again on my side. We want to talk about our router system. So the entire family will be in the following couple of sessions. I think today we will start with the OF1010. What it means, what possibilities it has. Phil, from your point of view, any recommendation yet?
Not yet. I talk about recommendations after we completed the series, because we're just going to start with a small router with a 1010, and then we're going to progress to the 1400 in the next videos and talk about all the accessories that we have, which is probably one of the widest areas of tools and accessories that Festool has. So I wouldn't recommend anything yet.
Good. So let's start with the very basics. What does the name tell us?
OF1010, it's kind of German. For those who do not speak German, OF stands for Oberfräse, which is the German word for the router. And the 1010 or the 1010 is the watts. So it has around about 1000 watts. So power-wise, it's one of the smaller ones we have. They go up almost to 2200. And apart from that, well, we could talk about the EBQ, but that's a bit too detailed, I'd say.
Yeah, that's more or less a standard. So if you talk about the name of the router, you exactly know what wattage the machine comes with.
Exactly.
All right, so we got this. The next important thing is the so-called plunge. That means how far can you penetrate into a material. And in the case of the OF1010, we are looking at 55 millimeters in the maximum. Right? So attached is now a so-called script cutter. So we're gonna make a small sample later on for you, just to give an idea what I could do with this script cutter. Then we will have a look on the parallel stop as well as the adapter for the guide wire system.
Yes.
So just to show you a couple of quick and dirty applications. But there's way more to come, so that will be covered in the next following sessions.
So it's a start. We're going to take off with the rows, blunt rows that we make. Basically take the last video and continue it, even though it's a new machine. And then we'll continue on in the next couple of videos. It's going to take at least 2 more, maybe 3 more to get into all of the accessories.
Well, you've been talking about the EBQ version.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, for our retailers important, the one to recommend definitely. Because you have various sizes of router bits, you have various materials, so an adjustable speed is more than good.
Necessary, yeah.
So if you talk about electronics, we have, of course, all the safety functions, overload protection, soft start, and a brake if you switch off the tool.
Same with the rail saw and most other tools that we have.
That's it. To keep a certain depth, we have a revolving stop with different heights, as you can see here. And if you have a little screwdriver, you can individually set the height of these. So the deeper sense of a preset like this is, for example, if you have to achieve a certain routing depth, which is, let's say, 25 millimeters in depth, that would be way too much for one operation with this little router. I doubt that the OF1400 could do this. You for sure could do it with a 2200, but not with a small. That means you would set on the lowest stop your final routing depth, and then you could start with the first cut, continue with the second cut, so it was the wrong direction, with the second cut, you lower it, and finally you got your preset routing depth, and that's where you are.
Exactly. So the tool has a lot of different options to use it and to work with it, and that makes it really, really versatile.
Absolutely. Now we've been talking about the script cutter, which is built in right now. So I just made a short script. I should draw it from the other side because then it appears in the right way. Phil is laughing. Now let's, if we route this out, if we work on that, of course we attach our plastic structure hose.
And also handy the plug it.
If you doubt that the round hose would match the oval shape of the base, it will fit.
It's a question that I get more
Yeah.
often than not.
What adapter do you need?
Exactly. None.
That's correct. Now finally, if we want to route, we definitely have to set a routing depth. And in this case, if I just have a pretty sharp pin, I have to touch the surface very carefully.
Yeah.
Because if I press it in easily a millimeter and I just have any resistance, so that will give an inaccurate result. So, when locking with the front handle, the plunge, I have both hands free. And now I make my choice on my depth stop. I'm
Yep.
going to choose the middle one.
In this case, it's not really that important.
Not
which one
relevant.
you take.
Push the depth control on each other. On top of this, you could see the fine adjustment. So I will give you an idea how this works in a second. Beside that, we have our ruler. So just to make life easier, you could set this to 0 and then raise the stop to whatever depth you need.
Yeah, so
Right.
for scribing, it doesn't really matter. Depends on how much of a groove you want to make, but
What would you recommend? What would you like to have? Any recommendation from the
from the
audience?
I would just say 3 mil.
3 mil, that's quite a bit.
Yeah.
Now let's say, okay, let's go 2.5. Yeah? Okay, so 2.5 is not easy to set, so because I just could get, but what I could do is either exactly 2, and then we add 5 more tenth, half a millimeter on that fine setting.
So for those who are not really good at math, it's a 1/10 of a millimeter
That's
that
it.
you can adjust.
One entire revolution changes the height by 1 millimeter. Depending if you turn that adjuster clockwise, you increase your routing depth. If you turn the adjuster counterclockwise, you would reduce your routing depth.
Yeah.
And the result is what you could see here. Just to give an idea, now we have set 2.5 millimeters. That's 2.5. If I add 1 more millimeter, so I just do an entire revolution, put it beside it. So that is 3.5, and 1 millimeter less appears. Appears a little bit more filigrane. It appears more filigrane.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's now our choice, which one we would choose. I think 2.5 wasn't bad,
Yeah.
was it?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so let's do it. 2.5.
So, and you totally move it free-handedly, so you kind of have to have an eye on where you're going with the router bit.
Yeah, so now if the cheek lamp is in my way, it's just put it aside, just to have free space. And all I would do now is just following the scribe line with my script cutter. So I got a perfect view due to this offset guide column. That's unlike with many competitors. You have a much better view to your actual router bit. Did you notice something? Phil, did you notice something? I'm prepared, but I didn't attach.
I think you had it on all the time.
No, I didn't.
It
Yeah.
wasn't in frame. Nobody would have noticed.
Not yet done.
One thing that you just did, which probably not everybody does, he didn't basically lock the depth, because you don't have to. You just push it down and move it. If you want to do that, if you feel more certain with it, it's always an option. But in this case, you were way quicker without keeping it locked. Just plunge up, plunge down, and be quick about it.
Yeah, sometimes you also need to be a little bit flexible. So if you, just to give you an idea, if you have a plunge, yeah, you could easily phase out, and that's only possible if you haven't locked it.
Exactly.
So now for the audience, something to guess. What could it be?
I know what it is.
You know what it is?
Only because of you. Otherwise, I would not have known.
Oh, really? Okay.
No clue about those things.
Yep.
I ride bicycles.
Me too. I do either. So, but I also have some bikes with a motor built in, and my favorites are coming from Italy, and that's the company logo from a famous Italian manufacturer of motorcycles. Right. So that's what a script cutter is for. Now, in the next step, to prepare a further job, actually, we would like to show you the parallel stop, which is also part of the content the machine comes with.
That's all. Yeah.
And we want to make a change on the router bit first. So to change the router bit, I think we have one prepared right here. That's a groove cutter. That's a fairly decent one. We've got a cutting length of 30 mil. And the specialty I would like to show you in a couple of minutes is that we have a ground cutting tool. That means I can really basically drill with this cutter and get absolutely precise holes. You can see
it a bit that it has.
Yeah, there's a carbide blade also passing the center, and that's why you could really plunge. Now, basically for the change, easiest way is if you roll the machine to one side. You have a spindle locking pin right here, which is spring loaded, because it would be fatal if you have that one pressed in while the machine is running with, say, 20,000 revolutions. So you're
gonna be ruined.
Yeah.
So you gotta loosen it once.
Yeah, that's what's really important. So we get really many questions on that. Once I have opened that nut first time, you can see I'm able to turn it with my finger.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, the router bit is still fixed in. And why this is as it is, I will show you in a second.
So there's the second turn.
Yeah. Once you overstep this one, you can easily remove or change your router bit. Again, this is our script cutter. Also fitted with a carbide steel, but they are also available in a normal steel, depending on the material.
Yeah.
Now right here we have a disassembled collet.
So it always is made of two parts.
Yeah, definitely. The important thing is, it has to have a certain precision, because if the tool runs at a fairly high speed, up to, if you think about a laminate trimmer with way more than 25,000 revolutions, it has to run absolutely precise. So that's why this is really a precision part, and that's why it also requires a certain care. So we have an outer cone, as you can see, that has to fit exactly into our spindle. So that's the first point. And related to that outer cone, we have to have an extremely precise bore in the center with at least the same precision. And to make this complete, you really have to snap this collet in, not just like this, and then you can turn it in, and actually you would be able to fix the router bit in a secure way. But the disadvantage of having it just like this, you can't take the router out anymore. Because if this one is not clicked in, you can't lose that collet from the spindle.
Yeah.
You can't make it loose. And that's important. This was the second step when we opened the spindle.
But just to make that or clear that up, they are always in one piece.
Yeah.
It would not be normal to basically break them apart. Or
No, it makes sense. For example, if there are different collet sizes available. So the standard the machine comes with is 8mm. But
Yeah.
we also have some 6mm collets,
Yeah.
as well as for the imperial sizes, a 1/4-inch collet.
yeah, which is like 6.3.
35.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's for the for the US or for UK. Funny wise, also our Swiss colleagues receive that particular saw that particular router with the 8 and the
Yeah.
1/4-inch collet for whatever reason. So I think it's a traditional thing. So in this case, you would basically buy just a complete
Yeah.
collet
If you need it, and if you have router
and
bits
just
that
change
need
it.
10 or 12 mil, those are available for the bigger routers that we have.
Correct. That's when we talk about that. So
Yeah, that's a next time.
regarding the size of your machine initially, that's why you also have to think about what dimensions of cutters would I like to use in that, right? And if there is appearing a 10mm shank or a 12mm or whatever half-inch shank, basically that would mean you have to at least start with an OF 1400. Another point is, how deep do I have to push that router bit in, not completely in. And maybe you have noticed that yet. I'll just show you maybe a brand new, because that one,
That's quite a collection.
meanwhile, yeah, that's nice to have. Yeah. That's our problem. Once you touch it, you can really see that there's a little bit of corrosion, which doesn't matter. Finally, it doesn't change the precision, but you can see this little horizontal
Yeah, there's a
mark
line.
with a little triangle over top.
Yeah.
So basically, if this is your shank, you got a cross, and on top you got this pin.
Yeah, that V.
And that's
shape.
the minimum, the minimum depth you should push the router into the collet.
Yeah, and if the router bit is a bit older or used and you don't see that line anymore, just push it in a bit deeper than you would think,
Yeah.
but not all the way.
If you have, let's say, 2 or 3mm of this grinded shank visible, you're safe.
Just as a rule of thumb.
All right, that's it. Now here we have also as part of the content the parallel stop, which is also something special. If you notice how the axis of the handles are related to the parallel stop, you can really see that these are moving or pointing in the same direction. Usually, if you compare to our competitors, you might have some different handles which are really across the fence, and that makes life really hard once you have to enter your material, because
How are you
The
going
parallel
to
stop-
keep it aligned, basically?
the parallel stop has to penetrate underneath the surface, for example, for a rebate. And if we have now, for example, an 18mm cutter, it's just as easy as that to create a rebate of 9mm width, because we have a center line on the base.
I'll show it right there.
So it means I just put this spot on with the edge of the material, and I already have set the width of this. Yeah? If you use a 24mm cutter, you would get a rebate of 12 and so on.
Well, it's
So
basic
it's
math.
quite nice. What about having a kind of a final setting?
If you want to
Any
make a
recommend-
groove,
Yeah, if you're a kind of fine adjustment like we have had for the depth.
oh yeah, there's another accessory. Now I get what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
That's that little fellow. has a spindle, and you've seen now I've been pushing out the
So what's
guide
it's hard to
columns.
see on the camera. You have to screw it in the middle slightly.
Yeah, that's later on my adjustment.
Your fine adjustment. And the preset is always a bit, well, flimsy is not the right word, but you kind of have to fit in 3 different holes
Yeah.
at the same time. But as soon as it's in there, you're good to go. And now you can see as soon as Tommy slightly cranks the gear, it slightly changes the depth.
Yeah.
Talking about,
Just,
again, 1/10 of a millimeter or something.
So in relation to this mark, I mean that makes it probably easier for you to understand and to follow. If I put this spot on, and if I start turning here, you can see how the machine moves either in or out related to the edge. And this is so, again, my possibility to fine adjust any setting with this stop. Once I achieve that, I just tighten my bolts and off
You're
I
good
would
to go.
Yeah. So as you can see, the guide columns, they can't be in a length of 1 meter because it would be very unhandy.
Yeah.
So what would we do then?
Don't we have a good guide rail system?
I think so.
There might be an option.
Yeah. So in these cases, as explained, we have a limited range with these guide columns. We would just use our existing guide rail system and the adapter that is also part of the content, and just attach it like this on the one side. And immediately I could use the whole thing in whatever direction, unlimited to
If
the
you want to
edge.
do any angles, nothing
Whatever,
that is
yeah.
parallel.
Or a position which is too far off the edge, quite easy to set. Of course, as we are talking about carbide fitted router bits, I have to be careful because that easily would cut the guide rail system as well.
Yeah.
So make sure that you are off the edge. So in this case, it's not about having a splinter guard available, it's just keeping the machine straight,
Yeah.
keeping it smooth, and have a kind of a surface protection, because all you do is basically happening on the guide rail, and the router bit just works in the spot it should. So there's no further damage of, for example, a sprayed or painted or varnished
Yeah.
surface.
Same as with the jigsaw or the insulation saw. We got different machines that use the guide rail system but do not actually run.
Yeah, that's correct. Now, a further problem could be if you are not watching this carefully, so that you tilt the machine
Yeah.
once you have set your depth. That's why we have this little support, which makes life so easy and makes the machine work nice and smooth on the guide rail system.
And all of those adjustments or attachments are interchanged so quickly, as you've just seen. So it's not a big adjusting
Not a big
moment,
deal, yeah.
and you've spent an hour trying to fit everything. It's really snug and well fitted.
The only thing that you have to possibly set initially,
Yep,
this one on the bottom,
I got it.
you got it. I think you got a screwdriver.
So right here you see those tiny black screws, and you know that from our plunge saw
These ones.
that you have the option to adjust it on the guide rail, because we cannot guarantee to a hundredth of a millimeter that the guide rail is always the same.
Yeah.
So we made it or built it so you can adjust the accessories.
There's always a certain tolerance. It's a plastic part here, we have a die cast part here, and so one might have it a little bit tighter, the other one might have it a little bit loose, so you can really easily set that clearance on top of that guide rail as you ever want to have it.
So it runs smoothly,
Yeah.
but not too tight.
And once you have set it, it probably might never ever change itself. except maybe you have or you work on a very abrasive material that works basically as a kind of an abrasive or a sandpaper.
Yeah, it just sands it off slightly,
Then
and then
you
you
can
just
easily,
readjust it slightly,
readjust
and
it,
then you're good to
and
go.
that's it.
And for whatever reason, if you think you should break that part, you can always get it again.
Absolutely. All right, so far so good. So the introduction, I would say, is done. Let's step further with the LR32, the hole drilling set for carcasses. Let's remove that.
You got that?
Now, just to give you an idea what we are talking about,
I'll get the camera.
yeah, we do have a little carcass right here.
I just filmed myself for a second.
That's good. No worries. So we do have a little carcass here just as a sample, and what we basically talk about is these set or this row of holes, which is normally brought in a distance of 37 millimeters off the edge and has a distance from one to the next from 32. So that's related to the worldwide hinging system. So they are all based on this 32 millimeter distance, and that's why we do have a specific guide rail system which is perforated, and that's exactly the 32 millimeter distance we
As
have
it
here.
says on the label. And for those of you who ask, why is it 32 and 37? It's just the standardized size that somebody picked at one point and everybody agreed on it.
Correct. So the same guide rail, of course, you could use on any router, any saw, whatever. Yeah. So that's all again fully compatible. And here we have our separated carcass.
So all of that's been done with the domino.
Yeah, it's coming with this retractable domino system, as you can see it here, so we can take it apart later on. We have already marked it with these triangles just to orientate ourselves, make sure that the triangle always points to the top and shows me which one is inside. So not to, by accident work on the wrong side.
Happens quickly.
Yeah.
That's why you always do that. In Germany it's called cabinet maker's
Schreiner-Dreieck.
marks, or Schreiner-Dreieck, which is an easy way to not mess up your project.
So I'll put this on our mobile workbench and hold it in place with our legendary fixing system.
Which makes it way easier for us because we don't have a clamp sitting on top of our material, and we can just move our guide rail basically wherever we want without having anything in the way.
That's correct. And if you doubt whether this would hold, you could anyway attach maybe an additional G-clamp either here or there, just to make sure you hold it down once you push here. But I think it's not necessary because it holds
It's sturdy enough.
very well.
So we got the guide rail.
Yep. Now the set we have to work with is, by the way, it's on the front.
Oh, okay.
No, it was hidden by the guide rail system.
Yep.
Of course, it is all prepared. Now this is basically all you need. If you have a router, no matter which one, so it could be, of course, the actual OF1010, could be an old OF1000 or even the old OF900 that would match this system. You will see in a minute how this works, and the positive message in advance is, if you like, you could also do that particular job with the OF1400.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little bit oversized, but nevertheless, as I said earlier, that's the perfect machine to start with routing, because you can cover the widest range of applications with this particular tool.
Exactly.
The only thing you have to watch out for is that you basically turn around the machine, because I would operate from the front end, but I can switch the machine on, and finally I just have to plunge.
Yeah.
So just to show that this is possible, because in the content you will find those little bolts, and that's the way how you would basically fix the base of the machine on this plate.
Yeah. But just if people have any questions about the set, there's different versions that don't include, for example, the router bits or some special parts. If you only need the plate or whatever, it's totally up to you, but it's always a recommendation to get the whole set because it's fixed in a sustainer. You've got everything you need in there. Everything has a specific place. You shouldn't lose anything and have a bit of order in your workshop.
Could you give our audience a short explanation about the router bits that are also in the content?
We have 3 router bits in there, 2 with the diameter of 5 mil, 1 with a special wood drill bit top, and the other one with the regular top. It always depends how thick your material is and what kind of stuff you have on the material.
What kind of coating? If you have a laminated chipboard,
exactly,
which is a middle wall of a cupboard, that means you would basically, just let me grab this. If you have to drill right through, that's a center wall. There's another one following here. You would basically just drill through. And if you have a laminated, so it would easily break and probably not be covered. If you use the standard drill bit, and with this special one, you get really a nice and smooth edge on the opposite side of that hole.
I don't get it any sharper than this. Sorry about that.
Yep.
And then you have a big drill bit with a 35 mil diameter, which is perfect for, and I only have the German word for it. I think you might have the English one for Topfbender, which is a regular, basically hinge that you put in cabinets.
Yeah, that's a standard size we use quite often. Well, what I have attached right now in the spindle is a centering mandrel. And you will see in a minute what this is for, because it's initially important that we line up the tool like this. So just slide it in, and now you can see I could move it back and forth in a certain way.
Yep.
And to find the proper position, I have the centering mandrel.
Still super easy.
Yeah. Of course, I could twist it now, but that doesn't matter because it anyway rotates later on. But what is really helpful is, for example, if you line up that particular mark with the edge of this hole.
So don't center it, which is a thing that I would, in my mind, think about first. Use the inner line for it.
That's it, yeah.
And then tighten those 2 screws, one in front, one in the back.
That's it.
And then you're basically centered.
Yeah. And as quick as you have attached it, you can take it apart again and use the router for something else.
Yep.
Now after that we would do nothing else but attaching the normal router bit. Put that one back into its place.
And if you kind of forget where anything went, there's always an image that tells you where to put what accessory. In the meantime, Tommy has already fastened the drill bit, or router bit in this case. Yep. And now you can put down the guide rail, and you could do that, but that's not recommended, to kind of like freebolt it and just drill it anywhere, but that's not why you should.
With this click you can again here it indexes accurately in this next 32mm section. And again I have 2 little adjustment screws just to make this nice and smooth on the track.
Yep.
Right? So that's as simple as that. Now to get started and to ensure that we don't have our shelves later on like this, it's important that we have always the same starting edge.
Because we need 2 rows, one in the front, one in the back.
And to ensure this, you can see there's a set of 2 little stoppers. coming in, showing different measurements. Here you can see similar, 16. On the opposite side you could see 32 and 9.5. So relevant is always what you have visible. So in this case, if I attach it like that, I would get started with the first hole in a distance of 32 millimeters off the edge. No matter how you start, if you turn it around, for example, if you have a door for that 35 millimeter bore of the hinge, you have to turn it around to 16 because that 35 millimeter hole has to sit exactly between two of these 32 millimeter holes.
Because it's going to get fastened through those two holes.
That's it.
And that 9.5 can come in handy because most cabinets are made out of 18 mil particle board. If you do that, you could use that 9.5, drill a 5 mil hole and use the system that we have with the domino and screw in a tiny adjustment and just fasten it with the domino system without actually using the domino.
Now you could see I have attached that stopper with a 32 millimeter mark on the opposite side, and you see the stopper is exactly in the center of one hole. Right? That means if I line up that guide rail spot on here, the first hole I would drill would come in a position of 32 millimeters. Right? Now we would start with one row up here, and if you would turn it around for the other side, that would lead to this possibly not horizontal shelving system. That means that's why the second stop is available. And so again, I would read it 32 millimeters, turn it around, attach it underneath. And then I would not start on the opposite side, but I would start again on this side. So I have exactly the same base. And so I can ensure that all the holes are on the same height. And finally, the shelves are on the same level. Okay. Now that's the first setting. To ensure now that the whole thing is parallel to the outer edge, we have these little adjusters that I basically need to double check. So we have this one on the track system, and we have one adjustable part which is like this. So just to prove whether the setting is correct, or the initial setting is correct, I put this to 0.
No, I can see it. It's hard. It's a bit dark, but there's a tiny mark here that adjusts perfectly with a 0.
So, and just attach it somewhere on the surface. And finally, just take the router and see whether this one slides in here. If it does, it's already preset. If not, then that's what the assembly line does. It can't preset this in advance. So all you need to do is open that Allen screw and move that entire arm further in or out until the base slides in like this.
Perfectly.
And that's what you basically would do, of course, on either part. So that's the same, you set it to 0 and off you go. And once this is done, it's all easy. Now we said we have a distance of the edge of 37 millimeters, or any other measurement you would like or you would need to have. Yeah, you can set this up to 110. That's pretty much, but standard is 37, so I would set this to 37. And so I do on the counterpart. 37.
So just as a reminder, putting it on 0 is just to check if everything's perfect.
That's it.
And then you go to the measurement that you actually want.
Yeah. Now to line up the whole guide rail system, you need 3 points. Yeah. 2 of them, these ones, to keep the guide rail parallel, and the third one to find the starting point. And in this condition, you can grab your G clamps, which are also part of the content, and ensure you have the track in place.
You can double check it if you're not certain. You don't have to remove anything at this point. As soon as you have attached the clamps, you remove the parallel pieces, but you can keep those two right here in place because they do not interfere with anything.
Now finally, I just
One
put
thing
it
is
again on
missing,
top.
and that's the depth.
Yeah, that's what comes next. So now basically you have a routing depth of, let's say, 10, 11, 12 millimeters. The kind how to set is similar as we did it before with the script cutter. You just push it on top of your surface,
Go down to 0.
lower your scale and your ruler, set this to 12 millimeters in this case, and that's it. Attach the plug-it cable.
Dust extraction. Also, safety goggles
Yeah, think about that.
and some hearing protection.
So as quick as this one works. So the first side, so we
Gotcha.
release the G clamps. And just mirror the whole thing. Put it again back in, choosing the same stuff. Could you pass me these ones?
Yes, sir.
And just to line up the guide wire system again, just attach this one, these stoppers briefly. Keep it again parallel. Got it?
Yep.
Cool. And go for the second row.
And as you've seen, you can be really quick about it.
Yeah, with a certain exercise, you get faster and
Yeah.
faster by the time. I mean, you're
probably
not
not
as
the first
fast
time
as
you did
a stationary machine, which has 24 drills in a row.
Yeah.
Then you got this one plunge, but you're way more flexible and you could do it either way on site or in your workshop.
Yeah. And I'll try to show that it's perfectly aligned. And there you go. One side done. Cool.
So, any more to come?
What does the time say?
15 minutes. So we could do maybe, what could we do? Oh, we are way too fast.
Yeah, we've been quicker than we expected. Usually we would have finished the video
Yeah,
by now.
right now.
So either option, we cut it and we say we're good to go, we'll continue the next time, because I'd say the next thing we should do is move up to the next router actually.
Yep. And also because then we could combine the next interesting accessories such as routing add or multi-routing template, kitchen worktop template.
But that's too long for a 15
That's
minute
yeah,
video.
that's.
I'd say we cut
definitely.
it.
Yeah.
It's a quick video. Cool.
Okay.
We got the go from the back,
From the regime.
from behind
Yeah.
the camera.
Pretty cool. Thanks for that.
Well,
So Phil, thanks very much for your assistance. It was great to have you in.
same.
Stay
as
safe,
always.
stay healthy, and
You too.
looking
also.
forward to have you in for the next time.
Yeah.